Our dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them. Athazagoraphobia, the fear of forgetting, being forgotten or ignored, or being replaced. Today I want to talk about this fear of being forgotten in the context of life itself and philosophy, of course. And I want to start by saying that I believe the fear of being forgotten is inherently human in nature, because many people always strive for some greatness, and greatness often comes from social validation and remembrance. Because, for example, I know a lot of people, and I can see or sense a lot of people who crave validation through social interactions. Like, if you don't get acknowledged by others, the thing you did wasn't as great, right? Like, it's kind of this thing, I think, that goes in hand of hand with being forgotten. And my apologies, because I'm still a bit sick, so please don't attack me for that. But yeah. And as I said in an earlier video, I also have this, I don't know if I would call it a phobia. I had this at least for a while, because coming from a nihilist and existentialist mindset, for me, I feel like the reason of living or something like an achievement in life would be to be remembered by some. But as the quote earlier stated, we'll remember the dead until we've forgotten them. And it's a quite simple statement, but with a deep meaning. And I think it's very accurate, the quote. Yeah, so why do we have this fear, or why do most of us feel this fear of being forgotten someday? Like, every one of us will be forgotten eventually. Even people like Michael Jackson, Marcus Aurelius, Platon, Pythagoras, like all these random, like I could name Michael Jackson, some famous musicians. In a few million years, no one will remember them. And the weird thing about this fear for me is, and that's why I mentioned the social validation, right? Because eventually, someday, humanity will have to end. Like, humanity will end someday. Whether it be in 100 years, through maybe nuclear warfare or some other catastrophe, or maybe it's in a few million years, maybe it's in billion years. But still, we crave this feeling of being remembered by someone past our own lifetime, right? And it's kind of paradox, because we know someday no one will be able to remember us anymore, because then we're just one with the earth, then we turn to rubble and dust. And we know that, like, we know one day no one would, like, even if everyone would tell our story to their children, right? Like, one day there would be no one that would be able to remember us. And I think that's a very paradox feeling, that even though you know that it can't be true to be remembered for all eternity, we still crave this feeling to an extent, or most of us do at least. And of course, this is one of those phobias or fears that can drastically alter your life decisions, your lifetime, and your happiness overall, right? Because if you have this Athazagoraphobia, then you always strive to be remembered by something, right? Whether it be education, work, social relationships, internet fame. Heck, you could do anything, right? Something to be remembered by. An athlete, whatever. Name anything you can think of right now. And I think my hypothesis is that this fear of wanting to be remembered comes or stems a bit from also the question about life itself, right? Because this was the first video I did on this channel where I talked about the meaning of life. And in my opinion, inherently, there is no meaning of life. Like, to me, it's just, we're just a random species on this planet that we call home. And it's just all about statistics and probability over like almost infinite amount of time, right? That we came to be. That's my opinion, right? You can have other opinions, of course. And I believe this fear of wanting to be remembered, or to live a meaningful life, right? Like, to be not meaningful in the sense of society, right? You want to be remembered as a greatness to society or to a certain group of people. And I believe this stems from a survival instinct. Because if the human mind would always think about these philosophical questions that run about life itself, right? They go about what is the meaning of life? Like, inherently, there may be no meaning of life. And of course, thinking about these type of questions can alter your perception of how to live and how you want to live or how you should live completely. Like, it can be a complete 180 of your life that you're living right now, right? So I think these questions are dangerous to the human body, to the human system. So I strongly believe that these fears are inherently there for many people. Like, it doesn't have to be the fear of forgetting directly, but maybe the fear of not achieving what you wanted to achieve, right? And this also kind of goes in hand with this phobia. Because whether you're religious or not, whether you have a spiritualist way of thinking about the world or not, the human body is such a fragile thing, right? Especially the human mind. Like, I mean, the human body, like, we have this, the human will, of course, is really strong, right? Like, there's always some memes about this, right? But the human mind is so easily attackable. Like, so easily you can change perception, right? There are many psychological experiments where, for example, you have that one opinion, but then on the other hand, you're in a room, you see two lines, and one line is clearly bigger than the other. Just like you look at it. But 10 people before you tell you, no, the lines are all the same size, right? The same length. And then this psychological effect makes you think that, or then you also say both lines have the same length, even though one is clearly bigger, right? And that just goes to show how little we can trust our own mind at the end, right? Like, it's all these psychological things, and I think this is also one of them. Because for a human system, I believe there are, of course, things like we need water to survive, we need food to survive, and I believe the third thing, of course, there's also air, but you get my gist. The third thing we need to survive is to keep our mind intact. And I think that our own psyche kind of blocks us, not like actively, but it's more just like an instinct, I would say, from experiencing these thoughts, right? Like, not actively, it's kind of weird to say, but there's a famous quote from Friedrich Nietzsche where he says, something along the lines, gaze too long into the abyss and the abyss will gaze back at you. And this is what I mean. Like, if you always think about questions that question life itself in any way, and also this fear of forgetting and being forgotten, right, is also such an inherently human question, then you kind of attack your own being, right? It's kind of a like, just from a perspective of survival, right? It's just wasted energy to think about stuff like this if you go from just an empirical, self-sufficient, survivalist perspective, right? It's just wasted energy to think about this and sit here and talk about how you want to be remembered, even though, like, well, it doesn't give you anything, right? But this wanting to be remembered gives you, because now I'm getting back to why I'm talking about Athazagoraphobia. Sorry if I do that. Like, I will blend in. That this fear kind of is like a motor, an engine. Acts like kind of an engine for us wanting to survive and have this, like, human will that we have, right? This iron will. And because we want to be remembered in some way, because we created, like, in my opinion, created things that keep us going in life, and things in the afterlife, if you're a spiritualist or religious, all these things, whether you believe in them or not, of course there are things you look forward to, right? Like, there's no such thing, like, maybe there's like some depictions of you do bad in life, then you go into hell or other places, right? In the religious or spiritualist context. But most often these things are positive things you look forward to, right? You want to live a good life to go to heaven. You want to live a good life because then you may, like, your soul may be transported somewhere else. Like, I don't know, right? I'm neither spiritualist nor religious. But yeah, so I feel like these kind of emotions that we feel when we think about being forgotten, and like, there may be even questioning, may there be no meaning of life, right? I think our mind and psyche is just simply not too weak, because it's not weak, but it's just very attackable. Like, it's not a good sounding word, but it's the only one that comes to mind right now for me. Like, our mind is easily attackable. Like, even these experiments I mentioned earlier, like, you can't trust your own mind, right? So I feel like our mind kind of has these defense mechanisms to rather not question this. Because if you gaze too long into the abyss, if you question too much about life itself, right? Like, many people have this, get into this rabbit hole where they then, like, hurt themselves or hurt others, you know? And that's, of course, nothing that anybody should do. I just want to clarify that. But there's a big correlation between thinking about these questions and these topics I just mentioned. So maybe we should take this fear of eventually being forgotten and turn this into something beautiful. Because to me, I thought about this a lot, right? I talked about this in the first video I did on this channel. This should be the 4th right now. Yeah, I think it's the 4th. But there's something inherently beautiful about something that is only temporary. And some people may not be able to relate to that, but I think what makes life itself special is that it will eventually come to an end. And through this temporary nature of life, it gets meaning, right? Because imagine this. I will use a metaphor to end the video. If you would be a fly, right? And you only lived like, I don't know, like these smaller flies, they only live like a day, right? And imagine you only lived a day. Wouldn't you, like, you would experience every moment to the fullest, right? You would remember what you ate that day. You would remember the surroundings around you, right? But the longer you live, the more all these beautiful things around you start to fade or even you get used to them, right? Like if you lived 1,000 years, would you still feel the same beauty this fly could towards the cherry blossom tree? Could you still feel the same appreciation to a good meal you ate that day? Probably for the first time, always yes, right? But the temporary nature of life gives life meaning for me. Or not meaning, because I don't think it has a meaning. Like, that's the beauty of life. And I want to end this on this note. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon.